Is it working? Okay.
It says that's what it says here on our screens.
Okay. Maybe it's working then. I don't know. Okay. It failed on my side, but maybe it is working. Okay, I think it is. I think it's live. Okay. Do you guys want to quickly introduce yourself and then we could begin the discussion?
Sure.
Okay.
So we are Jürgen and Mariana.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us. We are here on Fulton Street, and we live in a 110-year-old craftsman house that needs remodel.
Sure.
And we are here to basically discuss a little about our experience getting through the process of that which started January, is like the process of like handing in the project to the city, and we're getting feedback from the city on like what we need to modify in our planning. And recently, did you also want to introduce yourself?
Yes, well, Mariana as well, and it's a shared thing that we want to bring to you.
Sure.
So you can continue.
Yeah, so the most recent thing that we heard from Palo Alto Fire Department actually was like the interpretation of the residential fire code, which we can talk about as well. They determined that our project needs installation of fire sprinklers, and we are perfectly fine like making our house safe. Although the rules that were given to us are not really well understood by our designer and neither by ourselves. So the reason for declining was more of like the fire department basically couldn't give us a reason that was like based on a formula, which we would have liked. So and so the rule that I'm talking about is actually embedded in a question that is available online, and it reads like this. It says, "Are you removing and or replacing at least 50% of the existing roof structure and or exterior wall structure?" And yeah, this questionnaire is online, as I said, and I think there's two different interpretations of that rule, the and or rule. And on top of that, we are not clear. Our architect, for example, is not sure what it means, like how is removing and or replacing defined. We were told that a window can be replaced and not count against us, but it cannot be enlarged, shrunk, or moved. So otherwise, the length of the wall will be considered modified. That tells us that they're considering internal wall framing as well, then rather than the surface materials. So basically, our project will have some modifications in the roof and also some walls, and we're not 100% sure what replacing in this case means, because we're actually enhancing sort of like the walls outside. Or how is the structure defined? Is I guess one is like, I consider the structure the internal wood framing of a building. We were told that if we replace the roof shingles, that is considered as a modification to the roof structure. That doesn't make sense to us. And the reason there is, we were told basically that if we add like the roof, then surrounding the roof, whatever we need to, like the shingles around the structure that we're adding will also be considered the structure, and therefore will fall into the 50%. And that we were not clear as well, and it's not defined there at all. And then I guess the third question was, if we're measuring the linear feet of exterior wall, do we measure the square feet of roof change as well? And is that, is that sort of like added, like the linear wall changes percentage plus the changes in the wall, in the roof, sorry? Or is it sort of an average, overall average? We don't know. And are shingles counted, you know, the roof shingles, are they counted into the replacing, you know, part of the formula or this, you know, rule? And sort of those were sort of like just high level, the questions from our architect, and our project was initially reviewed by Carl Schneider, who has become unavailable because he's been out of office for a few months. So, and in his absence, we have tried to clarify these calculations with Ms. Claire Schum, but unfortunately we haven't received any further guidance or examples on how we can proceed. So we think the next step would be to contact the fire marshal. And I guess he supervises the plans and reviewers. So we are basically sort of desperately looking for who could help us in this next step. And we don't want to wait for 2 months for getting another answer, but we just basically need to kind of understand what the exact rule is so we can plan accordingly. And then based on that, we can either like install fire sprinklers or they're not necessary. Either way, we're fine with, but we just basically need an understanding of where we are. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. No, I totally understand. So did you guys already get plans drawn up? Like you guys hired architect, you guys got plans drawn up and you did all the structural engineering and all that?
Yes,
everything, yeah.
Everything was submitted in January.
So you have your construction docs.
Yes.
So okay. And so you guys drew this up with did you guys talk to the city ahead of time? Like say, hey, this is what we're planning to do, and okay, and they said it was okay?
It was
Yes.
okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think you guys are another victim. So so I have office hours every single week, and just about every single week I get something, some variation of your story, where you know, people go in, they say, oh, I'm going to do this or that to my house, and the people across the desk say, oh, no problem, go ahead, you know, just do this, and you know, stay within, you know, whatever these guidelines are. And then people spend tens of thousands of dollars on plans and construction docs and, you know, structural, you know, engineering and architecture and all that kind of stuff. And then bring back the documents, and lo and behold, they say, oh no, actually, sorry, you know, to do that, you're gonna have to do this, or it's gonna cost you way more, or you're gonna, you know, so there's just like dramatically different stories from when they talk to them to when they actually do it. And
Yeah.
and you know, what might have been, you know, in other cities, like, you know, 3 months, you know, to get approval could be 6 months, a year, right? So I've heard the story before, and so your story is unfortunately not unique. And then you know also the switcheroo is very common, right? Where basically whoever you're working with. I mean, by the way, I was the owner builder for my own house. It took me 1.5 years to get approval, so I feel your pain. Okay. So I think I went through 2 planners at the city, right? And you know, everyone had their own opinion about what was going on, and it was like this ever-moving target. You can never quite know what, and you know, theoretically, when you're at the development center, you are the customer, right? You're the one paying all the fees and stuff, right? So you're the customer, but you certainly don't feel like it when you're there. You know, at least that's not the
at this point. I'm almost a little bit anxious to go into the department and the planning department, because maybe they will disadvantage me, you know, in any way if I just ask like a wrong question, you know, the wrong question. So
yeah, you know, to be honest, I think that the customer are the people going to the development center, submitting and paying all the fees, right? I mean, and I think that the customer service needs to be improved. Okay, that's what I think. Now, not everyone agrees with me on this, but I think that you know, people are looking to invest in our city, right? You guys are looking to put, you know, probably a bunch of money in your house, trying to make it better, make the neighborhood better.
We just actually want to have a normal living situation, because we're missing a room, and we have enough space in the house. We just need to remodel it so we can fit all of our family in. So it's not a matter of like we cannot spend like 2 years. I mean, in 2 years maybe our middle child is in university already. We don't need that.
I know. It took me 1.5 years to get approval, then 1.5 years to get all the building done. So I know what you're talking about. And unfortunately, what you're talking about is not uncommon. So a few suggestions. One thing is, I think when you work with our city, you have to document everything like heck. Okay, I mean everything is an email, right? Everything someone tells you, you meet with them, they tell you things, you send them an email right back with exactly what they told you, right? So it's completely documented. You say, if I missed anything, say something, right? So there's no such thing as oral conversation because they might switch. You need to have that paper trail, right? Now, in your situation, do they actually have sometimes the development center has like a guidebook that tells you how things are calculated. Does nothing like that exist for your situation?
A guidebook to do what?
Like for the calculations, like this is how we calculate, 50% of the wall, 50% of the roof. Do they have a
I have not seen, or we have not seen that. Our architect has not mentioned it either. There is a guidebook.
Okay, you should ask
that would be really useful.
Yeah, you should ask them or Google for it, right? Because
I did Google it already.
Okay.
We did not find it online, but we're planning to go to the planning department this week and see if there is, because that's what's missing. The way it's written, it could be interpreted in so many different ways. So we basically need a really thorough explanation of.
Well, it's incredibly subjective, right? It depends on which planner you get. You get one planner and they'll say one thing because the rules are not super clear, right?
Well, the fire department, I would expect like the fire department has maybe firmer rules or clearer rules. And anyway, and so the fire department's response, what we saw was like that it was not the chief, but I think it was actually Carl, that basically he said like, I feel that we need fire sprinklers here. And we do definitely appreciate his like feedback and input here, but just from like I feel like a feeling, we are not.
That feeling will cost you $100,000 also. that's a challenge, right?
No, it cost me like a certain amount, but I think that's it's not secondary, but if these are the rules, if we require the fire sprinklers, we'll install them, right? I mean, but it's not clear to us if we were definitely planning to like sort of our extension is not that big, and it was like it was like below the required or the 50%. We definitely wanted to have like a project that did not require a huge installation of like of infrastructure, but again, if whatever the rules are, we would like to know, and we would abide by the rules. And
well, I think the other thing is, I think I don't know I'm not while I was a designer and architect for my own house. I'm not a professional architect. I did it because it was my own house, but I would guess the reason why they have this is because they figure, well, heck, if you're making like a dramatic change to your house, it's easy to add sprinklers in, right? But I think just in my mind, just replacing the shingles on your roof, I don't know if that, to me, that doesn't sound quite right, because
we are updating the windows, for example. So bringing in new windows to the house. And but the house, the structure will remain very, very similar. It's just like these new windows, and we will be adding 250 square feet to the house.
And about 10% of the today's coverage.
So I would guess that it's like, it's different than like a total rebuild, right? Where it's easy to run piping and all that stuff, right? If you're just adding a room, I don't know the detail of your project, but if you're just adding a room plus putting new shingles on the roof, I don't know. I mean, that seems like it could be like, in my mind, above and beyond the Call of Duty, right? Because I mean, then you're going to have to really do some major redo of your house, right? Because to run like big pipes through all your walls can be very, very difficult, right? So
it's also the city needs to install new the pipes to the house. I think they need to be a certain spec. And that of course all of that, and like we will need the roof of the ceilings need to be, there's certain things that need to be replaced, and I think can be, the sprinklers can be part of that, remodel, of course. That is not, I think that's not the biggest issue, but it's just like we did not know in advance what the rules are exactly, and we were planning for what we thought the rules were. Now we are surprised after like 6 months, I guess, and it's only been 6 months. So like you mentioned like 1.5 years.
Well, because I went there and I said, oh, I wanted to do this, and I talked to the person, and we even drew up some preliminary pictures and diagrams and all that stuff, architectural drawings. And then they said, oh yeah, looks good. And then we spent a ton of money on getting all the structure docs and getting all the construction documents together. And then we brought it back again, and they said, oh no, there's 10 other things that you guys did wrong here. And it's like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me, right? And then we did those changes, and then they said, no, there's some other stuff, and you're like, what? Like, where does this end, right? And I think I think that the situation is a lot of people, like, sometimes some people in our city, some of our employees in our city, believe that everyone here in our city is super rich. All the residents are super rich, and what's an extra 100K or 200K or 500K to your project? But I think the reality is a lot of people, in fact, I would say most people here are barely here. A lot of people came here for the schools and are barely here, right? I mean, when I moved here, I had sell furniture. I went from a 3-bedroom condo to a 2-bedroom house, right? So I had to sell furniture, right? And like, we weren't rich when we moved here, and a lot of people aren't rich, right? We gave a lot up for our kids, right, to be here, and so we have a much smaller space than we maybe would want it. And so the perception that everyone here is super rich and what's the extra 100K, 200K on your project, like no big deal, is a big deal, right? And also the delay, right? It's like, like you said, your kids will be in graduate school by the time you're finished, right? You're like, what the heck, right?
You're right. I mean, you mentioned like the wealth. People think everyone is wealthy in Palo Alto. Well, I think definitely we are maybe better off than a lot of people, the average maybe, or in the country. But we're very normal. We're a very normal household. We both work. We pay our taxes. Our income is not derived from like speculation or like investment it's from work, and basically we're already paying a lot of like taxes, and we accept that, but we have to save up for this remodel, and saving is also difficult, but every month that this is basically pushed forward, it'll create sort of like a tension in our family, because we need the space in a way, right? Like, as you said, like this is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and we have 2 teenagers and a small son, and we have the floor space, but we don't have the bathrooms and so forth. So it's a very strange setup, and it's not a new house either. It's not like a brand new house, it's kind of a fixer upper in a very decent condition, but we need to do something about it, and we thought like, okay, it's going to take maybe a few months to do this, but now it's already been more than a year, because the planning started like more than a year ago. And then you also see other houses in the neighborhood where they're being purchased, and then the remodel starts fairly soon, and you don't know exactly what their situation is. I'm sure they had planned, they were in a similar situation, most likely, or so it's talking to our neighbors here, they have been planning for more than 5 years.
So unfortunately, I think unfortunately your situation is not uncommon, right? It's like a lot of people have the same exact thing, and it's not right. I mean, we should have an efficient process, right? I mean, the rules should be clear, it should be efficient, it shouldn't be capricious, because I think what bugs a lot of people is that the rules are very capricious. It's kind of like whoever you have, it's up to them, and it shouldn't be like that. It should be really cut and dry. And when it's not cut and dry, when it's not clear, I think we should go in favor of the homeowner, right? Because it's like it's a tremendous, I mean, probably one of the biggest expenditures for most people, right? And so to jerk people around, I think is not right, right? It's not how we should be running our city. You know, of course, we want everything to be safe, but I mean, sometimes, you know, it's not reasonable, right? And so, yeah. So what I suggest is, if you haven't already, start documenting things like crazy, right? Because I think that's just and timestamp it. And when you send things to people, like you give them the little history, like here's what has happened, here's what your colleague said, and here's the email, right? Just you almost got to be somewhat adversarial with it, because it's like otherwise, you know, you'll get like totally different things, and you'll keep going around and around in a circle.
We might not have been sorry, or I think our architect has been taking over most of the communication to
get him to document it, but basically it's got to be super documented, because but even when it's super documented, sometimes, you know, people like the city will say, oh, sorry, our mistake, we said you could do that, but we looked it up, this other thing, and you know, there's someone that just bought a house, they bought a lot, and they were gonna build a single family home on it, and then, you know, they bought it they were told from the city that, yeah, you go build a house on it, and then they found out later, like, oh, just kidding, you know, you can't build there anymore, or you know, it has all these issues, and so you can imagine, you bought a whole lot, and it's just an empty lot, and you're planning to build a house, a single family house, right? And suddenly you can't build it anymore, right?
That exists also, that situation.
It just happened earlier, like a few months ago, right? So you can imagine how that person feels, right? So it's like this kind of stuff should not be happening, right? It's just not right. It's completely unfair.
It is unfair, yeah. But no, we want to do whatever is in our power to, you know, have a very good communication with the city, of course, and document everything, and to do the right thing. Basically, we want to do the right thing, and we hope, as you said, like we're treated like we're customers, and with respect, and with, you know, transparency and so forth. But so this week we're planning to go to the department here in Palo Alto, and we'll hope to get some answers, or more answers.
Okay, yeah. I mean, feel free to, you know, keep me in the loop or copy me on some of the stuff. Or Audrey, I'm gonna have Audrey send you kind of some. We're actually trying to reform this, just because it's been a problem for such a long time for so many people. Like literally, like I say, every week there's someone very much like you guys complaining about this issue, right? Not your particular issue, but something very similar.
Yeah,
right?
something.
And it's like, it's crazy, right? How can it go on like this, right?
Yeah, thanks so much for supporting us, and you know, providing us with your input and guidance. We'll keep you in the loop, and
sure. Well, keep me in. Also, I'll ask you to. I think Audrey will send you something, but just keep her in a loop as well, and she'll try to track it.
Got it.
Sounds
I
good.
will look out for an email from Audrey.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining my office hours.
Thanks,
Have
Greg.
a good night.
Okay, have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.